we're consistently having to fund our public school children in a way that is having a deficit thinking and actual budget that continues to fall. This bill actually creates more funding that is diverted away from public school children. Unacceptable. And through well-documented research, we know that the funding that has taken place in Kentucky through the SEEK formula, which is an allocation funding formula, has basically gone from in the middle 50% of general fund budget to the lower 40%, which is absolutely unacceptable because our children deserve to have the opportunity to be successful. This bill we have serious concerns about as superintendents and as leaders in the Commonwealth. We cannot accept that public dollars will go to private school funding, private school options. We believe there should be a choice, there's no doubt. But in our minds, public school funding is dedicated to just that, public schools. So, one of the things that we have to think about is, let's think about all the schools throughout the Commonwealth. We have large city schools, which Dr. Polio can speak to, and I've been a part of. We have rural schools. We have independent school districts. I myself am in an independent school district. I was born and raised in Frankfort, but I spent many years in JCPS. All children deserve to have opportunities. We understand that. But not at the expense of destroying public education and the funding that exists for it. I'm here to tell you, we adamantly oppose House Bill 563. We are here to stand against it. We will fight against it. And we believe not only will the governor veto it, but we are going to urge our legislators to not override it. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to my great friend and dear colleague, whom I've known for many years, Dr. Polio from Jefferson County Public Schools.
All right, thank you, Dr. Barber. We were APs together, principals together. So we've been in this for a long time in public education for many decades, and I'm proud to stand here right now with my colleagues because I think this is important that every educator in this state knows this is not a Jefferson County issue alone. It's not a Fayette County issue alone. It's not Hardin County, Kenton County, or any other county of the handful that have been added into this. This is for every public educator, including every retired public educator in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And there are two problems with this House Bill 563. One is around how the bill was drafted, the language in it, the legality in it, and I will defer to Commissioner Glass, who has done a fantastic job last night on KET and also in statements released today, detailing the problems and how problematic this bill is when it comes to just operational, how they're going to do that and ensuring accountability and ensuring that there's not fraud in many other areas. So I'll defer to Dr. Glass on this. The second part and the larger part of this, the larger aspect of this for me, is public education funding. So let's be candid about this. When I went to principal school, get your administrative certification, and everybody behind me did the exact same thing. We are all in the same business, whether it's 96,000 students or whether it's 1,000 students. We all do the same work up here. And when we were in school, we were told that the budget you create, that's what you value. The budget that you create. So we can all put fancy mission statements on the wall and vision statements, and this is for companies too. But when you get down to it, that's talk. It is what you budget for that you value. And as superintendents, we are reminded of this all the time. What we budget is what we value. And it's the same for our legislature. So let's take a look at what this budget, in conjunction with House Bill 563, say they value. First of all, do they value all-day kindergarten in this state? All-day kindergarten. You know, ever since Kira in the early 90s, the Commonwealth of Kentucky has been known as a progressive state around public education. And here we are, 30 years later, and we still are not funding all-day kindergarten, when some of the most successful states in the United States, and people like to use these often, who has the best outcomes? Those states that fund all-day kindergarten. I would challenge our state, if we're going to be progressive, we should be funding early childhood for every child in this state, not just Jefferson County, but early childhood. But we don't do that. We don't even fund full-day kindergarten. So do we truly does the budget truly say we value public education? Second of all, professional development. Do we value our teachers? And we have JCTA here, and thank them for their partnership. Other groups like AFSCME here with us, because we all stand together in this. But in professional development dollars, we expect more out of our teachers than we ever have in public education across America. More than we ever have. We continue to get requirements for new professional development for teachers. We should be funding that as a state. So clearly we don't value through this budget the efficacy of our teachers. Next, what about KTIP? KTIP was taken out of the budget several years ago. And KTIP is Kentucky Teacher Internship Program, our brand new teachers that are coming out of college. So they have a year of preparation. They have a mentor. And once again, everyone up here is impacted by a teacher shortage right now. Every one of us fight for the same smaller group of teachers every year. And yet we are not supporting the retention of our teachers. And when we look nationally, we say the number of teachers who don't last 5 years, and we're not willing to invest in the mentorship of our brand new teachers in this state. That's reflected in the budget. Textbooks. Let's get to textbooks. And let's talk about what 563 actually says. When we break through it all, HB 563 is saying we value private school children getting textbooks, but we do not value public school students getting textbooks, because for several years there has been no funding for textbooks for public school students. That's what we're saying we value right now. This is what we value. And finally, this budget does not contain health insurance for retired teachers prior to 65, as was agreed on about 10 years ago. And so when we clearly want to say this is not just a Jefferson County issue, in every district here, hundreds, if not thousands of retired teachers prior to 65 who are now going to be purchasing their own health insurance. So that's what we have to say we value when it comes to public education. And if we want outcomes to be different, yes, we all believe in accountability standing up here. We believe in accountability and holding our public school districts accountable for outcomes. But if we truly want results, if we truly want outcomes to change for generations of Kentucky children, then what we will do are fund the things that are most important to us in public education. And there's not anyone out here who doesn't believe that all-day kindergarten, early childhood, textbooks, professional development, and teacher internship should be funded. So we believe in choice, and we're willing to have that conversation. It needs to be done right, and we need to fully fund public education before we set aside $25 million for private school scholarship tax credits. So as a result of this, clearly I urge the Governor Beshear, as I believe he will, to veto House Bill 563, and also for all of our legislators. You should not override the governor. We need to come back to this at a future session and have discussions bringing everyone to the table. We need to fully fund public education. Then we can talk about scholarship tax credits. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pollio. At this time, I'm going to open up the floor for any comments from my fellow superintendents before we move on to any other Q&A and some other remarks that we'd like to give. So any superintendents like to give any other comments? All right, Mr. Price from Henry County. Thank you.
Good Good morning. I'll speak coming from a small rural district in Henry County, Kentucky, with a student population of around 2,000 students, which is in much contrast to Dr. Polio in Jefferson County. However, as he previously stated, this bill does affect my district as well as it will affect his district, and I'll go back to reiterate the issue of funding. You know, if you look at the state of Kentucky, 93% of the Commonwealth's children attend public education, public schools in the Commonwealth. As Dr. Polio stated, we have not been funded in the area of textbooks, professional development. I will say that Henry County, for the past several years or many years, we have chosen to fund our own full-day kindergarten, which is a tremendous amount of money out of our general fund. When you look at passing tax credits to either private individuals to open either a charter or a private school, I do agree with Dr. Polio that we're not saying that choice for parents and for students should not be on the table. However, I believe that right now with the language in the bill, how wonky it is, ambiguous that it is, that what we need to do is we need to shelf this, table this for another time, and different K groups, such as our superintendent group, our Association of School Administrators, all of those individuals need to be brought to the table to discuss this. Not individuals out there that are not looking at what this will do to public schools, the funding, the facilities, as well as enrollments in the district. So again, I highly oppose this bill, and I urge the governor to veto it, and which I do agree that I think that he will, because I think that he has a good handle on public education. Again, it's just not the time for House Bill 563. Thanks.
Dr. Schultz?
Good morning. I want to echo many of the colleagues' statements today, and just a reiteration that a lot of people, when they hear superintendents whining about funding, they think we're looking for a handout. We're looking for an investment. If you look at the funding that came forth in CARA, and the Kentucky went from one of the lowest states to one of the middle states to the upper states in achievement, there was a strong investment in public education. I know that legislatures will say, well, we bumped SEEK up to $4,000. If you look at what inflation has done since the 1990s, if SEEK was properly funded at the same level, it would be about $4,700 per child versus $4,000. $700 may not seem like a lot, but if you think about everything else that has gone up in that time period, diesel fuel, cost of food, textbooks that we have to pay for now of our general fund, the dollars just are not going nearly as far as they used to, not going nearly as much as they need to, and whether you want to believe it or not, there are more challenges in public education now than ever before. So to ask us to continue to do a yeoman's effort with the existing funding that we've had, and then expecting higher outcomes, is a little bit of a magic trick. Educators work exceptionally hard and have always worked exceptionally hard. But you ask a classroom teacher to do things they've never been asked before and not have the resources that they need, yet we're going to allow a tax credit that opens up the door for charter schools. It's just not a great idea. So I would urge once again, as everybody else, for the governor to please veto this, but more importantly, when it gets back to the House and gets back to the Senate, do not override the veto, and make sure when we're going to do something like this, it's fully vetted, all parties are at the table, and we make legislation that is extremely strong. There's a good track record of that. With the last bill on teacher retirement, it's not the best bill, but at least it's a solid effort. It was done by bringing people to the table, working through the process in a timely fashion, and trying to come up with a manageable solution. That's all the superintendents are asking for. We want to be a partner in public education. All of us have put many, many years into this profession. We don't want to see public education go the way of the dinosaur. Thank you.
Great job. Do we have any other superintendents? I think I'd like to add something. Dr. Sugg?
Thank you. I do have a unique perspective, and I don't think any of the superintendents up here have served on a local school board, but I have. I served a 4-year term in my home county of Henderson, Kentucky, as a local school board member. And while I'm not speaking for all school board members, I can tell you this: continued bad legislation, unfunded mandates continue to leave school boards holding the bag. No school board members' associations were consulted on this bill, and what happens when bad legislation is passed is those pieces of legislation are passed down for local school boards to implement. So all of our school boards across Kentucky will be left holding the bag, so to speak, in how to implement what is truly bad legislation. Thank you.
Great point. Just want to reiterate something Dr. Polio said and make it a little personal. You know, I have 4 children, and I happen to have a 3-year-old by the grace of God. And yes, I know retirement's far away, but but I also think about, why are we not investing in our children birth to 5? Why are we not investing in the kids that really need the support? Because by the time they get to middle school and high school, the challenges just continue to grow. Instead of diverting dollars away from our public school children, if we have the ability to fund more, let's fund our kindergarten. But let's not dangle it as a carrot to get a bill passed. That upset me as a parent. It upset me as a superintendent and a leader in the Commonwealth, and we will not stand for that. So fully fund our schools. We have a special guest with us today. I'd like to recognize, and I know he's been recognized by Dr. Polio, Brent McKim, longtime leader in JCPS and JCTA. We're glad he's here, and he has a few comments he'd like to say. Welcome, Brent McKim.
Thank you, Houston. I'm Brent McKim. I am a teacher and the elected president of the Jefferson County Teachers Association, where I represent about 6,000 educators in the Jefferson County Public Schools. And as a teacher myself, I am calling upon the governor on behalf of the almost 6,000 educators I represent. I'm calling on the governor to veto House Bill 563 for the most fundamental reason possible, because it puts students at risk. It puts their safety at risk. It puts students at risk because the bill explicitly prohibits the state from regulating the education service providers that will be working directly with students. That means that the state is prohibited from, for example, providing any kind of criminal background check for the adults that will be working directly with kids. This puts kids at risk, and that's unacceptable. So even if you believe in using public tax dollars for private and parochial schools, even if you believe in that, you should not be supporting this bill, because it does so in a way that puts kids at risk, because it prohibits the state from protecting their safety. It has language in it that says the state cannot regulate those education service providers that are working directly with the students. That's completely unacceptable. And no legislator should vote for a bill unless it assures the safety of students. Now, I agree with all of the other points that have been made by the superintendents, but I'm working at a very fundamental level of safety for kids, and it does not even pass that test. Also, it does not protect taxpayers, because as the Commissioner of Education has pointed out, The bill is very loose and lacks the kind of oversight you need to assure that those public tax dollars that are redirected to these private and parochial schools are being used appropriately. The commissioner has said at the Louisville Forum that it would invite waste, fraud, and abuse with those public tax dollars. That's also unacceptable. If you're going to try to craft a bill like that, you need to sit down with the education stakeholders, and we've demonstrated that we can sit down and work through very tough issues. Over the past year, we worked on the pension issue, which is a huge and challenging issue. We developed a solution that we believe is a reasonable one for everyone. So we've demonstrated that the education stakeholders can step up and work through tough issues when we're at the table. That hasn't been done. The education stakeholders have not been at the table for this bill. So the process by which it was developed is the wrong process. It was not inclusive. It did not provide the stakeholders the input, meaningful input that they should have had. And because of that, it's a very flawed bill. And for those reasons, on behalf of the teachers I represent, I ask the governor to veto the bill, and if he does so, I call upon all legislators to uphold the veto. Do not override the veto, because doing so would put students at risk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to open it up to Q&A and anybody's fair game up here. Especially.
I'd like to start with Dr. Polio. Listening to what you said in your speech, a lot of it was not directed towards 563. A lot of it was directed towards budget. So are you here today more concerned about this individual bill, or are you here really today to talk about the big picture, knowing that in the next week we're going to have a really clear picture of what's for public education in this budget?
Yes,
So what's the real focus?
well, I mean, it's clear I'm opposed to 563. I've been in public education my entire life, 25 years, as I think most people have. I went to public school. My daughter goes to public school. My parents were public school teachers. So I'm 100% behind fully funding our public schools. And that means, yes, I am opposed. I want to be clear. I am opposed to scholarship tax credits, fundamentally. But however, as I said before, that's where this bill is significantly flawed. But I think when we look at the bigger picture too with the budget, I'll say it again, what we value is important. And this is a state that does not value full day kindergarten and the many other things we talked about. So to answer your question, both of them. I'm opposed to House Bill 563 and scholarship tax credits, and I also have a problem with our current budget.
Lawmakers say that just because somebody takes a tax deduction doesn't mean that SEEP or other education funding is going to go down. Can you walk us through, even though it seems obvious to you, could you walk us through how this is going to take away resources from public schools?
Well, I think, once again, Mark, we have to look at, what we are not funding. So SEEK has remained flat for many years. And so as I think who was talking about, I can't remember who was talking specifically about SEEK funding, I think Greg was, that if we were just using inflation to keep it absolutely at the same level right now, SEEK funding would be $4,700 per student and not $4,000 per student. So essentially, funding for education just in the SEEK formula has gone down over the past decade. Secondly, is once again, what we are not funding. So I understand when they say they're not removing money, but they have removed money in recent years, and they're not funding that, and at the same time saying we're giving $25 million, we're earmarking $25 million to scholarship tax credits. So I find that to be very problematic. At the same time, let's be clear. What this does is ask us to go to our constituents locally and ask for increased dollars from property tax to do things that we must do, like infrastructure, building new buildings, textbooks, all of these things. And now the legislature also wants a bill to pass a bill that makes us asking for an increase in property tax, the nickel tax, harder to do for many of our districts. So not only are we not getting the funding, we're also trying to stop funding for public education, which we have been forced to do, is to ask our local constituents for higher property tax.
So
Here's what I'd say to that. If it is truly about our lower income students receiving scholarship tax credits, then I think we need to bring that threshold way down on this scholarship tax credit to those that get this specific benefit. And I'll tell you this, we have nearly 6,000 homeless students in JCPS. That's the last time we counted prior to COVID-19, and we're going to recount that, and obviously we can see that dramatically increasing. We have 13,000 ECE students, special education students. We have 11,000 English language learners. And so I would ask those that say that, where will those students still be? They'll still be in our public school system, and we all have those students that have such need and support. Those will not be the one receiving the scholarship tax credits to go to private schools. I would also say, let's have accountability. If we're going to give tax dollars to it, let's have accountability about the achievement gap. Let's have private schools have to do assessments just like we do, and let's ensure that those students are accepted at equal rates and not put out of private schools like we know will happen. So I think I would say that there's a whole lot of accountability that needs to be ensured for our private schools.
Dr. Polio, can I ask?
You can.
Yeah. I just want to say, the bill speaks to this. Households making $84,822 per year for a family of 4 will be eligible. Is that low income? But after the first year, students would be allowed to continue the program until a household reached 250% of the federal reduced price meals threshold. That means a family of 4 making less than $121,175 in income could be eligible to receive these dollars. Is that low income? Nearly 2.5 times the average median income. Tax credits reduce the general fund revenue that could go to funding other states' needs, like affordable and reliable broadband, local economic development projects, and expansion, of course, of quality early childhood learning. One of the things you have to realize is this bill allows for outright discrimination. And so to answer the question directly, let me be clear. This could provide state support for religious instruction, creates privacy concerns, and creates an expensive, unneeded bureaucracy. It directly supports discrimination. It could also government support for religion and data privacy and participation, and data protection becomes an issue. Listen, I'm here to tell you today, this does not serve low-income families. Dr. Polio and I both know, having been in JCPS and across the Commonwealth and in rural districts and in independent school districts, we have families making less than $30,000 a year. Where's their chance? Where's their opportunity? They're not going to see it because the middle class is going to swipe it up because that's what they see as an opportunity for them. It's going to pay for kids who already attend private schools. That is a fact.
You've all talked about the tax credit portion of this. What about the portion that makes it easier for students to transfer between public school districts?
I think that's very problematic, and I actually think that some of our smaller districts could probably speak to that. I think they would see much more impact on this than probably a Jefferson County. But I think, does anyone want to speak specifically to the open borders?
So once again, I represent Oldham County Schools, and obviously we're a very high-performing district, and a lot of folks want to be in our school system. If we were to have this happen and us not to be able to block that, we won't have places to put children. I'm looking at elementary schools that are at 99% capacity right now, and that's with our own local growth, our own folks that live within the community. If we have to take folks from outside, which we currently do not do, I don't know where we'll put those individuals. And so we're going to put people into overcrowded classrooms with limited resources. It's not a good solution. That's my viewpoint on that. One other question that I'd like to go back to that you ask as far as the funding stream piece on this. We don't know exactly what all we can do because we're not fully funded. And we're not being even given that option. We're saying you're not doing a great job, but then we're going to go ahead and peel off some more money and try it this way. There's been enough research about charter schools that those in successful public schools sometimes have one thing in common: the zip code the child is coming from. And so I want to ensure that when we're really bashing public education, which seems to be the theme, that we're fully funding public education and fully supporting public education and bring that accountability. No problem with that. We owe it to our kids. We have a moral imperative to educate all of our kids. I bet that is in almost all of our mission statements. But doing that in an unfunded structure is not a fair shake towards public education.
Dr. up there, I have a real quick question. I'm sorry, Lawrence, it follows up on yours. But go ahead, Lawrence.
So the follow-up question was, you talked about, overcrowding schools, but according to this bill, you wouldn't have to accept those students, you'd have a policy if there's room to accept them.
I agree, but that doesn't make it great legislation. I mean, just because I don't have to do it doesn't make it something that I feel as a superintendent that's best for education overall. If I only supported things that helped Oldham County, there'd probably be not a whole lot I'd support because, once again, we don't always get the fair shake of the stick. We have high taxpayer outcome because we don't receive the same type of money that we used to from the state. We used to be 60 state, 40 local. It's now reversed. We're now 40 state, 60 local. My folks get hammered every other year, it seems like, with the tax increase to be able to keep up with the expended or the extended amount of things that we need to do. Not want to do, need to do, to ensure great things for our kids.
Dr. Schultz, following what Lawrence was asking is, your board could make a policy according to this piece of legislation that you would then have to figure out how to handle people wanting to move into your district. Do you think that you don't think that should be an option, or you just think that even with that option, you don't like it?
My recommendation would we would not make a policy to do that, because then again, you're kind of picking and choosing who gets to come, and that's not necessarily a fair way to go about it also. Who are you going to pick and choose? Are you going to pick and choose a child that has really high needs versus someone that doesn't? That's not an equitable thing, and I wouldn't want to get involved in that.
My other question, and Dr. Polio may have a response to this as well, but why do you think Oldham County's schools are growing? Because people can move from counties where they don't feel that their children are being serviced properly. What about those people who aren't upwardly mobile and cannot move into a place like Oldham County or Henry County or somewhere where they feel as though the school district might better suit their child?
So the way I look at accountability is if we're not getting the job done, and I would assume that Dr. Polio agrees with this, then we need to be held to the same standard and figure it out. We have a lot of magic sauce, but it's also called we have a great community involvement. We have great families. We have great educators. But if we weren't getting it done, and we're not, in some of our gap populations, we are not getting it done. And that has been a source of frustration for the last 5 years and will continue to be a source of frustration. Because once again, our mission statement says all means all. And so I can either blame the kids on that, or we can figure out that we need to do something differently. And so that's what I think most school districts do. They try to figure out the ways to meet their kids where their kids are and to ensure that there's going to be success.
Well, I know it's got to be frustrating to be a target. When you're the big target, you're the big target. And these collar counties around Jefferson County, Fayette County, Kenton County, those counties, they lost a third of the Republican supermajority because rural lawmakers, Republicans, did not want to support this because their superintendents didn't support it. But there will be people who see this tonight in Jefferson County who wish that maybe they could move their child out of JCTS that have been frustrated with the system. What do you say to those people who look at the school choice options in Jefferson County and would like more of a choice?
Well, what I'd say is, once again, it's about equity and who this is going to serve. And once again, I'll go back to who the students will still be in Jefferson County Public Schools, the students that will struggle the most, that we have to support, that we're not getting the funding for, whether I said homeless students, English language learners, students of color, those students are still going to be in Jefferson County Public Schools. And I would say this, if we wanted to follow the research on the largest impact on education and with our students across America, I would guarantee funding all-day kindergarten and early childhood has a much greater impact than putting $25 million aside for scholarship tax credits. And let's go with the outcomes on that.
Question for Superintendent Mansfield. You have one of the more successful and well-funded school districts. What's your opposition to this?
My opposition is already school districts can develop policies that address some of the issues that are addressed in the bill. When there are difficult issues, oftentimes that the state is facing, we hear that local control and those closest to the point of implementation are those that are best equipped and informed to make those decisions. And in some ways, this bill takes away that local control. And certainly, as well as all the fellow superintendents, I echo their sentiments with regards to particularly what speaks to this, is that the budget does reflect our priorities and our values. And when you take money away from the opportunity for it to fund public schools, you're in effect reducing the value that you place on public schools.
Just two more questions. Question for anyone, why do you guys think educators weren't consulted when drafting this bill?
Well, I'll be, brief on it. I'm not a politician, so I can't speak to the process in Frankfurt, but clearly I think that it started out as a process. This would only be for public school students, and then quickly changed to, we're going to fund all-day kindergarten in this bill as well. That was going to be the trade-off, and then we're going to throw in private schools as well. Oh, and by the way, we're taking out the all-day kindergarten. So I can't specifically comment on, I don't know the inner workings of Frankfurt. I'm a school guy. I think everybody up here were school people. I can't say that, but clearly I think the best bills and the process that we have to go through when we are passing change in our district is to involve our stakeholders, involve our stakeholder groups, have discussions in a very transparent way, and I don't think that happened with this bill.
This passed 48 to 47 in the House. What does that tell you about the possibility of picking up 3 votes to be able to override this bill when it only passed with 47 or 48 in the first place?
Well, I think when you have I don't even know if we call it a super majority in Frankfurt. It's a super majority in Frankfurt now. And the fact that it only passed 48 to 47 in the House, and how many Democratic House members are there? 25. So they say there's a lot of legislators out there that share our same concern on both sides of the aisle. And this was all before, I think, our local superintendents, our K groups, our other groups decided to say this is not a bill, and the commissioner. So I feel optimistic, I will say that this will not become a reality in the Commonwealth.